And we're live. So
Sweet.
I always feel like a YouTuber when I do this intro. So it's yeah.
Yeah, it
So
was really cinematic
welcome,
there.
Tim from Helium.
Thanks for having me. Um,
Yeah.
Having a
So
good
this this
start to your
this is
week so
super
far.
exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It's actually a big day for Helium today because we're launching validators. So it's the biggest change to the blockchain yet, and I'll go over it in more details during the chat here. But um, in about an hour, by the time this presentation wraps up, we'll be pushing the button to go live and make this biggest change to smooth out consensus group work and have IoT nodes for the biggest LoRaWAN network in the world running smoother than ever before. So it's a really exciting day here, and I'm happy to be talking to you guys.
Yeah, so I mean, yes, that fact alone that you're taking your time and having this presentation just in actually the hour before the validators go live.
Yeah, well,
That's
I'm
yeah.
I'm the blockchain community and social media manager at Helium. So the core developer team right now is really working hard on making sure that everything's good for validators, and they've been working on this since January now. So it's been about 6 months of hard work on their end to make sure that validators and staking will run really smoothly, and it seems like all's ready to go for launch. So I'll just have to send out some social posts around an hour from now.
Yeah, we'll try to keep this presentation to an hour. I mean, you have a pretty valid excuse for not running overtime. So, but maybe you want to start by introducing yourself. Who are you, Tim?
Yeah, so as I said, I'm the blockchain community and social media manager at Helium. Um, I've really been into social media all my life, ever since I was in high school, and I made like Instagram quotes accounts, and I got really into promoting them. So I've done sort of like the same thing with Helium accounts. I've made like a Helium mapping Twitter, a Helium hotspots Twitter, and then just our social media planning for our different posts throughout the day. And different highlights. We really like to focus on education, and think that education is the biggest factor for IoT and really getting people involved, because a lot of people still don't know about the mission of IoT. And we really feel like Helium is changing the game with our incentive model. So yeah, I went to Northwestern for college, not really in an IoT field. I studied philosophy and legal studies. So I'm not the most technical when it comes to IoT. So it might be different than some of the other speakers you've had recently, like Simon Kemper from Data Cake. I saw he's really great at speaking about the dashboard and interface and white
Yeah.
labeling and all of that. And we love his platform here at Helium. So I got into crypto in 2016 in college, and that really carried over through the rest of college. And I was really into peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies. So the first one that I really got into, besides Bitcoin and Ethereum and Litecoin, it was an advertising cryptocurrency that cut out the middleman of, say, Google, where they take around 30% of the revenues, and it just made it person to person. But I've really found that Helium, I discovered Helium in early 2020, and I ordered my first hotspots to provide LoRaWAN coverage and earn cryptocurrency rewards. And I just really got involved in the community. We've really grown. When I got involved, it was maybe around 3,000 members in our Discord, and we're up to 80,000 members as of today. We're
Yeah,
about to cross the
we could
80,000
actually, I
line.
mean, if those that are watching now, and I know that we are using Discord as well, and you're in our Discord server as well now. So please ask questions if you want. But well, the Discord server for Helium, it's grown crazy. So
Yeah.
it's one channel like for each country, and there is a lot of like stuff happening in
Yeah,
all the
there's
channels.
lots of involvement. So if you need
Yeah.
any help setting up devices, the console channel will be the go-to place. If you'd like to try mapping out LoRaWAN coverage, we have over 500 mappers now who just sign up on their own and connect their LoRaWAN trackers to just
Yeah.
map coverage on the public data set. and submit that to our endpoints, which is
I'm actually doing it
really
myself. So
yeah,
we have four
my tabs
mappers
here
of those 500
somewhere.
are mine. So
Cool.
yeah,
It sounds you've had some pretty fun involvement so far in Helium. You've enjoyed it yourself?
Yeah, we are. I mean, it's really. I mean, you're probably going to tell about the growth and everything very soon, but I mean, we did have the course, this applied IoT course last year, and well, as you said, you joined in early 2020, and well, last year at this time, Helium didn't even exist in Europe.
Yeah.
There were no deployments in Canada either, so it was only in
US hotspots.
Yeah.
So we've really expanded, especially with third-party makers. There's been almost 40 applications so far where anyone can submit an application as a manufacturer to be able to make hotspots for the community. So that could be for India with the IN 865 frequency, Australia with AU 915, for Europe, EU 868, and then all around the world. So even the first hotspot popped up in South Africa over the weekend. So it's always exciting. And we're at 94 countries and counting. And we're also approaching 80,000 hotspots today.
Yeah, I counted actually. We were just below 80,000 before we started here. So let's see if we end up over 80,000 after this presentation.
I mean, it's been a really rapid growth recently. It's been about 1,000 hotspots every day. And there's hundreds of thousands on back order. And there's just not enough parts to keep up with the demand because the LoRaWAN industry never experienced this much demand before. So previously, there was hardware sitting on shelves and just waiting to be purchased. And now it's the other way around, where they're just manufacturing more and more. And unfortunately, it might even be interrupting with usage for some who really need to use the network, and they just haven't seen this demand before. So it's all getting smoothed out, and it's all part of the process of the growth of the network.
And when I mean, I'm going to let you start your presentation, so don't not worry. But what was one question which I think is very interesting is that you said, I mean, this is an IoT course, so people that are in this course, they are in it for the IoT, so they want to build applications for IoT. But then you mentioned something about crypto, and that you joined in because of crypto. That was your journey into the Helium, and which is super interesting. So you learned about IoT after
cryptocurrency, and we find that that's a big way that a lot of our community gets involved in Helium. So there's definitely both sides of it. It's a double-edged sword where users come from the IoT space and get involved in Helium because it is the biggest LoRaWAN network, and LoRaWAN's a big advancement for long-range, low-power devices. But people also come into it from the crypto space because they like to earn their passive cryptocurrency, and hotspot mining is another form of cryptocurrency mining, and it's a brand new incentive model based on providing wireless coverage. So it's really been unseen in the cryptocurrency space before, and that's what piqued my interest, is that it could really revolutionize how wireless infrastructure is set up around the world, and it could go beyond IoT. So we've seen that recently with our announcement of 5G. So Freedom 5, the company that works to provide coverage for many of the national and state parks in the United States, we recently partnered with them to make CBRS 5G gateways that anyone can purchase. And the waitlist filled up within, the website crashed the first day, but it filled up within the first week there. And there's been massive demand for both IoT and 5G now, and we're really excited to get more wireless networks off the ground after IoT.
Yeah, very interesting. So let's see if you. I mean, now we see your slides, so you have at least prepared a script. So I won't keep you from doing that. I'm going to monitor as well the Discord server, and I know that you have your eye on that as well. So if there are any questions, please just ask them, and I'll make sure that you get them, Tim. So.
Yeah, I have it open here on the side.
Yeah.
Really appreciate you having me again, by the way.
Yeah, and the same goes to you. I mean, it's I think, I mean, as I said earlier, I mean, and the reason that Helium is so interesting for the IoT ecosystem, like, is that what you have accomplished to do is to create a network. I mean, regardless of the incentive model, that I know that is really what's driving, and that's. But I mean, we do have a network now which didn't exist. So last year, when we had the course, most of the students, they didn't have a LoRaWAN network. I mean, we had the Things network, and this year we have. And well, let's see, next year it might be everywhere, even in non-urban areas. We'll see.
Yeah, it's incredible that a network that didn't exist 24 months ago is expanding in 94 plus countries now, and 80,000 hotspots and hundreds of thousands on back order. You could really play around with the coverage almost in any area now, and it's really expanding. So you could set up your own coverage and get involved with your own IoT devices. It's really the people's movement, and it's really exciting to see where it's headed next. So with that, I'll get started. So the new wireless economy, I've already talked about it a bit, but this is the original Helium hotspot. So this was originally sold in the US 915 frequency in North America, and it's what really started the HNT mining game, and it got a lot of people involved in the IoT space, and with the HNT incentive model, it's really grown faster than anyone's expectations. But I guess, as they like to say in the crypto space, in hindsight, it was inevitable. Once you have an incentive for anyone to power their own wireless networks. So about Helium. Helium was founded in 2013 with a mission to make it easier to build decentralized wireless networks. So we've been backed by multiple VCs. Some like to say Google Ventures is the most reputable one, but there's plenty of them, including Coastal Ventures, FirstMark, Multicoin Capital, Mark Benioff. The list just goes on and on, USV as well. And they've really helped get us off the ground and into the HNT incentive model that we're in now. And we couldn't have come out with the original Helium hotspot or been making as much network and blockchain progress as we have without these VCs. So we're more than thankful. And with these VCs, we've raised a total of over $50 million to go towards working on everything from the original tech to now the People's Network. So it's been an incredible movement so far.
Yeah, but this is interesting also. You mentioned 2013. So the company has been around for quite some time. And also, everything started about a year ago, more or less. So the real growth started. So maybe you have more information on this further on, or otherwise we might just spend a second talking about it, because I think this is interesting. I mean, you're running LoRaWAN, so that's we're talking about LoRaWAN. We can still use all other LoRaWAN compatible devices.
Yeah, any LoRaWAN sensor.
Yeah, they work. And so from the consumer or user perspective or the developer perspective, this is just another network. You have to pay something to use the network. But you didn't start with LoRaWAN in 2013. You have used different wireless technologies, as I understand.
Yeah, so in 2013, Helium was founded by Amir Halim, who is our current CEO, Sean Fanning, who was the founder of Napster and really believes in the decentralization of all aspects of life. So wireless was just a next step for him. And Sean Carey. Amir Halim, our CEO, is the one who's most involved today, and he's really brought direction to Helium. So before LoRaWAN, Helium was really focused on bringing about the technology for wireless networks to be more long range and low power than ever before, and also working on sensors in a variety of verticals. So whether it's refrigeration monitoring, that was something that was worked on for about a year, just to be able to report temperatures in refrigerators back to the internet, to agricultural sensors, GPS trackers, and all sorts of different verticals. But it really didn't all come together until LoRaWAN connected, and it's really been a glue for the network so far. And since it's grown bigger than any other LoRaWAN network in the world with the HNT incentive model, it's really the foundation for the Helium blockchain. And LoRaWAN rewards are based on proof of coverage. So something like 5G, that'll just be for data credit rewards from usage on the network. But LoRaWAN will also have just the more coverage you provide, proven by more hotspots on the network, will earn more rewards as well. And that's really providing a basis for this foundation of having LoRaWAN for anyone around the world. And it's really a fundamental technology that can change life and bring about use cases that have never been possible before. And it's still just the beginning being touched on the different use cases that are coming about. So it's really exciting to see that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it interesting to see when you look at it in retrospective is that, I mean, the Helium has, as far as I understood, I've tried to read a little bit about the backstory, and I mean, you have tried different wireless protocols. So if you go into technical details, LoRaWAN is what's one part that has made it successful, as far as I understand, and also the blockchain part. So both these things combined together, what has been like ongoing for a long time, made it to this exceptional growth. And the result we see, I mean, even if you're, as I say, I mean, even if you're not interested in crypto, even you don't, well, I don't want to think about that part. I think that some people might be scared about that. I mean, traditional, like, if you shouldn't do anything you don't understand, and it's not very easy to understand these things if you go into the technical details of how blockchain works and the crypto works and that. So, but from the developer perspective,
try to simplify it as much as possible. So if you're a developer and you just want to use network coverage, you don't really have to worry about the cryptocurrency side of things. So it is how the network takes place, and it's what keeps hotspots online. But also what keeps hotspots online is people being passionate about decentralized wireless and the IoT space and LoRaWAN, and just the future of low power wireless. So you do earn HNT for providing coverage, but that's not the only thing in the ecosystem. And there's hundreds into thousands of use cases already, and millions of data credits spent on usage each month.
Yeah, and you mentioned HNT now. So just for people that are very new to this is the cryptocurrency of Helium. So it's called Helium, and
the Helium token. So I'll give a little bit more of an overview. We've already talked about the incentive of HNT, but HNT's goal, just plain and simple, is to make anyone be rewarded for providing wireless coverage, because it's really previously been an unfair game that the telcos have had control of, and people haven't been able to provide their own wireless coverage and also get rewarded for that. So the tech has really advanced in these past years, and it's become more of an achievable goal that anyone can provide wireless coverage. And there have been plenty of setups as well that are people place hotspots in the 50th story window of their apartments. I know I had a host that was in the 50th story for a bit before she moved. And it was really exciting to see all the proof of coverage with hotspots 25 miles away or more, just because that's how far LoRaWAN can reach. And it's really an awesome basis that you're rewarded for the coverage that you provide, and you can visualize it on Helium Explorer on the website or in your Helium app.
Yeah.
And then the flip side of this is that HNT can be burned. So it's a cryptocurrency, and it could also be burned at the Oracle price. So every $1 is 100,000 data credits for devices on the network. So it's really affordable because each device uses 1 data credit to send a packet of data back to the network. And you can send that at any basis you want. So if you want GPS tracking every minute because your vehicle's on the move, it'll have something that triggers the LoRaWAN packet to be sent every minute that your car is on the move, for example. Or if it's agricultural sensors and you want data points every hour to see how things are coming along, then that's how you program it. And it's sent back to the blockchain. And you can use it on dashboards like DataCake, Ubidots. There's plenty out there now.
Yeah, there are already, I mean, a couple of integrations ready to use. So DataCake is one of them. I guess Ubidot you mentioned, and we have been talking about these low-code IoT platforms. And you see more of them are like having this one click of a button integration from Helium to what you can find also on the Things Industries consoles. So they have much similarities. Yeah.
So yeah, we're really trying to make IoT as accessible to the end user as possible, where they can just power on their devices and connect it to the network and see their data with having to do as little work on the development end. So it's great for developers who want to make these new use cases, and for users who want to use the network coverage but may not know how to code or program these devices, for example. And with this, we have an ecosystem of hotspot makers now that I've mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. So from left to right, these are the Nebra indoor hotspot miner, Nebra outdoor hotspot miner. On the top is the original Helium hotspot with the black dot. There's the Syncrobit gateway at the bottom, the Bobcat Miner 300, and the Rack hotspot miner. I believe that's the V1 in the picture. And there's a V2 now too. So these are the hotspots that are on the market from both Helium Inc. and the third-party makers that have really expanded LoRaWAN coverage around the globe. And the introduction of these new third-party makers has really helped ease the bottleneck on expansion. Yeah. So
and also
Helium doesn't really have to worry about manufacturing hotspots anymore. We just worry about uptime for blockchain and for the network to make sure everything's stable.
Yeah, I think that your microphone might be like rubbing your. Yeah, so thank you. But what I also think is worth mentioning is that those hotspots you're showing here is that like the hardware platform is very much the same in all, and it's a Raspberry Pi platform. So all of these are Raspberry Pis. I would say most of them. It doesn't need to be a Raspberry Pi, but I think that Nebra is, and the Rock Wireless is absolutely Raspberry Pi 4.
I believe
the original one, I'm not sure about. Or
yeah, the original hotspot has a Raspberry Pi. I believe Bobcat and Syncrobit both have Rock chips built in, because the Raspberry Pis are in lower supply, and that's really brought up the price of them as well. And part of easing the burden on supply is really lowering the price of these gateways. So the current components make it so that hotspots need to sync to the blockchain to remain online and provide coverage. But with the introduction of validators today, that will change things for the long haul, because light hotspots that don't need to participate in consensus group work to keep blocks up and running and merge transactions into the blockchain, those won't need to be included in hotspots anymore down the road. And validators are really the launch pad for this change to take place, where hotspots are just focused on providing the coverage, and the internet can take control of sending out proof of coverage challenges and making sure the hotspot beacons and has witnesses that pick up the signal and report back. And it's not all internal in the hotspot anymore. So that'll bring prices down to hopefully $100 or so per hotspot from the current $400 to $700 price tag.
Yeah. You got a very specific question here from Tamin. Which hotspot is the best in your opinion?
So there's not really a best hotspot. I mean, I really like the OG Helium hotspot that we made. But I've also mined with the Bobcat Miner 300 rack hotspot miner. I haven't had a chance to get my hands on a Nebra long AP unit or Syncrobit unit. But they all have HNT mining functionality built in, and they all require being synced to the blockchain, and they all have Bluetooth buttons or a way to onboard it to the Helium app, and they come with instructions on how to use them. So just whichever ship times a lot of people like to base it on, or whichever brand they feel the most comfortable with, because that's the brand you'll be getting support from, and that also made the hardware. But they do all provide LoRaWAN coverage, and it'll also be expanding into hotspots that provide 5G coverage soon too. So there'll be 2 lists of hotspots once that second wireless network is online.
You mentioned before that there were hundreds of thousands in back order. So, and that's just an interesting thing. So, how many is it like official? How many exactly, or more or less, or?
Yeah. So I don't think we've said publicly, except our CEO did say in one interview he was in, that we have 500,000 plus hotspots back ordered from these third-party makers. So they send us their numbers, and just a total of 500,000, along with 1 million plus total chips on order to begin making additional hotspots as well, because the demand's been there. And with light hotspots coming online and the price going down to $100, it's or around $100, depending on the maker. They could really price it however they would like to. It's really expected to take off in the coming years with the low costs of providing wireless coverage. So yeah, it's definitely been unseen in the IoT space before, and it's just been wild to see it every step of the way and take part in the growth as well with my own hotspots and providing coverage.
Yeah. So I got a question here also from why is the hotspot hardware open source, and would it be possible?
So you can make a packet forwarder. So the hotspot hardware is open source, and anyone can bring a gateway online to provide coverage, but only hotspot options that are approved through a third-party vendor, such as Rack Wireless or Bobcat, can mine HNT. And that's because these are secured with an ECC chip, which helps make sure that the hardware is secured within the hotspot. Because if you're making your own packet forwarder, you could potentially fake proof of coverage by just placing the internal card in your computer and simulating coverage with nearby hotspots. And that wouldn't be good for anyone's rewards, because it's really a bad form of gaming if that's allowed. So we're looking at options to open source anyone onboarding and also having the secure element in, but that's still in the process. And the community is also working hard on that with the Helium improvement proposals, HIPs as we like to call them too.
Yeah. And I've actually done that myself. I used the Pygate, the PyCon Pygate, and
nice.
used that as a packet forwarder for Helium. So it absolutely works. Obviously, it won't be able to run the miner, so which is syncing the blockchain. But in like 30 minutes, you won't be needing that anyway, I guess. So when the validators come online,
it will take some technical elements. So light gateways are really expected Q4 of 2021 into Q1 of 2022. So hotspots will need to continue syncing to the blockchain, but validators will make it so the switch is possible. And hopefully soon that secure element can be open sourced, so anyone can mine HNT with their own gateways and not have to wait on third parties to manufacture them as well.
That would be yet another game changer, I guess. So,
Yep. Yeah. Today's the biggest change to the blockchain, but that'll definitely be the biggest change to hardware. So exciting times ahead. It's always been exciting within the Helium community so far. So Helium hotspots, HNT miners, are powered by LongFi. As you said, that's sort of the combination between LoRaWAN and the Helium blockchain. You bring those together, and we call it LongFi. So this protocol is really, it's uncomparable to any other wireless networks like Wi-Fi or 5G, for example. I know a lot of people have said that, oh, Starlink is going to be the biggest game changer in wireless. No one's seen anything like Starlink before. All you need is a view of the sky and you'll have wireless coverage, but you still need compatible hardware in the devices to connect to the Starlink gateways. And it won't be as far away as LoRaWAN coverage, which can be up to 200 times as far of a reach as Wi-Fi. So LongFi, it's LoRaWAN compatible. It allows device roaming between networks. That's also something that we've been working hard on behind the scenes. And I think we'll have something coming up in the coming weeks on device roaming, but really any LoRaWAN network, because LoRaWAN devices use the same frequencies in their countries. Any LoRaWAN network could forward their packets to Helium. So that's really interesting. And I'm excited for what's to come with that too. And then also micropayment transactions. So like I said before, 100,000 data credits go into $1. So that allows you to spend very small amounts at a time. And cellular, for example, has base fees, sometimes around $5 a month, just to use a GPS tracker. And with LoRaWAN, you could spend less than a penny per month if you're sending the signal that infrequently. So it's really pay as you choose for how much data you'd like.
Yeah.
And then there's also cryptographic proof of time and location. So everything is recorded in the blockchain, even the data usage. So you can always go back and check the time and location something was sent. Of course, packets are secured from end to end. So the location will just be on your end if it's a GPS device, for example. And then a real world blockchain. So at the bottom right, that's our mapper site. You could see New York City. It's fully covered from the mapping that's taken place within the community with Helium coverage in the downtown area. Just check that out. But it doesn't look like someone's walked through Central Park just yet. And then at the top left, you could just see how coverage is really taken off in Europe. That's just a screenshot from earlier today. About 80,000 hotspots online and tens of thousands in Europe now. It's been really exciting to hear stories of everyone's involvement because with a real world blockchain comes a real world community. So with 80,000 Discord members and nearly 80,000 hotspots online, the growth of the community and the network really go hand in hand. And it's been a really supportive environment in our Discord, and the general questions and answers, hotspot setup help, antennas, you name it, the channel. People are there to help each other. And you could see someone set up a hotspot on a crane just yesterday in Berlin. Before reposting that on our page, we made sure they had permission to do that because everyone should make sure that they have permission to provide coverage before placing a hotspot. But that's definitely an ideal location for LoRaWAN. It's as high as possible with a clear view. And then people also love setting up the rooftop setup. So here's a 5.8 dBi antenna in Canada. And it's one of the top earners because of that higher altitude clear view that helps reach nearby hotspots for proof of coverage.
So I guess that there is a lot of people that are getting experts in antennas and and radio technology just by by working with setting up your Helium hotspots.
Definitely.
So yeah, Eva mentioned about mentioned earlier about data credits. I think that is also, I mean, the incentive model is obviously that you're going to transport data through the network. And just to give you those that are listening an idea on how much or little it actually costs of sending data. So let's say that you have a sensor that is sending one package every 10 minutes, which by LoRaWAN standards might be a quite high frequency, depending on the application, of course. It would cost more or less like 50 cents per year in cost if you would pay it. So it's not that much. 50 US dollar cents, that is. So
yeah, every 100,000 packets is $1. So it sounds like that would be around 50,000 packets for a year then, which comes out to about 50 cents. So it's definitely really reasonable, and this allows anyone to really play with network coverage and get set up with devices and start using the coverage anywhere they'd like. So we're really excited.
And you get, I mean, I don't think you have mentioned it, but you get 10,000 data credits for free. So it's everyone. It's, as I see it, I consider this as sort of a free network for developers, because with 10,000 data credits, you come a long way. So
if you sign up, it's just console.helium.com. And we've had this promotion running for a while now. I can't say for sure whether it'll be an indefinite program, but if you just sign up for an account and start using Console, you'll get 10,000 free data credits for your devices. It's been pretty sweet, and it's helped get a lot of cool use cases off the ground so far that I've been excited about. And then I just have to include the creators in our community. This is a big part of what I do from day to day, is talking with creators and their teams. So Ed Ballou, that's him setting up a rooftop setup in the top right corner. Justine, we've worked closely with her team in getting her set up, providing coverage, and she's providing coverage across the Los Angeles area now. So in her most recent video, she included Helium as her favorite app of 2021 so far, which has been really exciting. She's definitely been one of my favorite tech content creators, and I think she's really been changing the game with her content recently. And then NTC Reviews worked closely, and you could just see his barn hotspot set up in the top, bottom right corner there. He said he gets close to 100 witnesses, because that's in New Jersey. It's just outside of the New York City area, but all the way into the city, because LoRaWAN can just extend that far with a clear view. As well as we have the top cryptocurrency YouTube channel, Voscoin. Drew has worked really closely with us, and he worked closely with Syncrobit to launch his own custom gateway that he sold 1,337 units of within 12 hours. So he sold out of that. That was a limited supply. And it's really, it's been awesome to see these influencers with their own projects. I know a couple others are working on their custom gateways or custom trackers and things like that. As well as Investor Bren. He recently had an interview, or just yesterday, with Dahl from our team about validators. Jimmy is Promo. Jenna Azarek and Crayban. Our community is really out there helping anyone who's interested in providing coverage, getting set up with a hotspot, as well as starting to utilize coverage. And it's been really great having so many creators within the community, because we really understand any pinpoints that we may want to work on more, or that need improvement, because there's these real world experiences, as well as everyone who comments and relates to the posts can give their feedback and really have input into the open source ecosystem of the People's Network. And then just in the middle there is mining Helium with a Freedom Fly gateway. So that's a sneak peek of 5G there.
But if I understand, the 5G gateways, they are also, they also have the LoRaWAN chip in the same, or you're combining them, so it's not only 5G, it's both, or
yeah, that's correct. So you'll have a LoRaWAN gateway, and it'll be connected to a 5G radio. So far it's just Freedom Fi's gateway that they've said is compatible with the 5G radio, but it may be announced that other gateways could be compatible. We're not quite sure yet. But so far, the Freedom Fi gateway will provide LoRaWAN coverage to earn those proof of coverage rewards, and the radio will connect to it to provide 5G coverage and earn HNT rewards for, say, device usage in a coffee shop or your neighbor's house. You can earn rewards for 5G coverage that you provide. So why Helium? Really, the main reason to choose Helium is that there's so many people providing coverage already that you don't need to focus on networking to create that coverage, because it's really a decentralized community, and everyone who's in the community around the world is focusing on creating the best coverage, which also provides them the highest rewards if they provide better coverage. So it allows developers to focus on making applications and use cases and getting their projects off the ground rather than providing coverage. So you can provide coverage if you'd like. And if you're using a use case, it's definitely recommended to provide coverage, even if it may be strong in your city, for example. You might want to provide coverage in your building, so your own IoT sensors are always connected. But along with that, it's the largest IoT network in the US and in the world. The coverage has increased 5 times within the last 9 months. We were really under, I guess, under 10,000 hotspots just last summer. And then expansion into Europe and other countries, continents around the world has really taken off. Low costs for individual sensors, and it's compatible with any LoRaWAN sensor that's off the shelf.
Yeah, and we might mention that it's compatible with what we're using in the course as well, the PyCom devices. So, which obviously is a LoRaWAN device, so LoRaWAN node. So
yeah, I haven't had my hands on a PyCom yet, but I've seen sneak peeks and read tutorials, and they seem pretty sweet for providing coverage. And a number of our users are Salesforce, Augulus, Naui. Naui's making some awesome water meters that it's actually billions of dollars are lost to water loss and leakage each year. So use cases like that, it may be unexpected, but the coverage provided could be put to a very valuable use case. Nestle, Lime scooters for tracking scooters. Conserve, that's sort of art and history management and safety monitoring. Careband, Smart Mimic, and InvisiLeash. So these are some of our main users, but of course, since it's a decentralized network, you can use the People's Network for any use case you'd like, and it's not really tracked by user to see what the user is using it for, because it's decentralized and the packets are encrypted end to end. So use the network for anything you like and transmit data. And so it doesn't stop with those use cases, because if you check out docs.helium.com, we have hundreds of compatible use cases listed. So you could get started with coverage on the People's Network. And if you want pre-programmed use cases, a marketplace like My Devices has 400 plus plug-and-play solutions for temperature, CO2, location, and sound. And that's just the beginning for all the different use cases. So here you can see, for example, the Dragino LBT1, which is a great tracker that's also used for mapping on the network. The Adunis field test device, these are our original mappers on the network, as well as the Bosch parking lot sensor. I think Noble Systems, which is a user on our network, has about 1,500 of these parking lot sensors that detect anytime a parking lot space is open or occupied in Huntington Park, California.
Yeah.
So they're really expanding because they found that as a valuable way to have just a user-facing application where anyone could see open parking lots since it's a busy area, as well as use cases such as the Victor V-Link rodent trap. Some of our creators in the community have really liked those because it'll tell you when the rat is trapped or mouse without having to look in the trap, because that's definitely not one of your favorite parts of setting up a mouse or rat trap, is checking the trap. So you'll know if something's in there. And then it's just a matter of taking it out.
So I got a question here about the 5G gateway. Is that only US or is it Europe as well?
So it'll be in the United States to start, and closer to the end of the year, it'll be announced other areas that may participate in the 5G launch. But so far, CBRS in 2020, it's really been legalized within all of the United States. So it's just North America to start, and hopefully the regulations become more clear in Europe and other regions. But it'll be really cool to see 5G coverage, especially I know Freedom Fi is planning to have pilot cities, so it's not clear what the pilot cities are yet, or not announced at least. But just to see coverage really solidify and hardware be dedicated to certain areas to show the people's network and its strength in really coming together to create a strong network that could be used anywhere for 5G coverage around the globe. And hopefully eventually we have a network where everyone's providing coverage for each other rather than relying on telecoms and actually making HNT for doing so. So you'll be using your own coverage or your neighbor's coverage, and not having to worry about whether Sprint or I guess Orange or Verizon is providing coverage. And then, so some of our use cases, like I mentioned, Adafruit and DataCake. We also have Tago.io, MQTT, AWS IoT Core, and Microshare was a recent one. And it's really an ever-expanding list of integrations and dashboards that want to use the people's network to make data usage and sharing easier than ever, especially with white labeling solutions. And these are great ideas for startups as well, because really usage is the future of the network. And there haven't really been huge successful LoRaWAN startups just yet that make use cases, but with something like a parking sensor or maybe a gas sensor for those older homes that still rely on gas, a lot of them actually don't track when the gas is done. Something like that could be very valuable. Water monitoring sensors, agricultural, in the field where you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi or cellular, and you can be up to 200 times farther away from a hotspot than a Wi-Fi router. Yeah. So it's really valuable for use cases like that, and it's really sweet to see what's up and coming, and to see some sneak peeks as well. There have been like the barnacle trackers, which I really like. They're the size.
Yeah, I think you told me about that when we spoke earlier. So yeah,
I really like those. And you could just return them in the mail, and it has postage paid already. So it'll track whatever you want to send, make sure it doesn't get lost. It'll even tell you if the package has been opened. And then once it's arrived, the receiver can just send it back in the mail, and they'll receive, I think it's a $10 credit for sending it back that they can use again. And then Helium Console is also open source. So anyone can make their own OUI, which means that any packets can be routed to their own dedicated organization, and they'll have their own identifier for that. So you really don't have to rely on Helium's software if you don't want to. So you can make your own software. Paul Pinault from our community, he's Disk 91. He made an OUI for France, and he's really getting that up and coming with his own devices, and it's all routed back to his own OUI and tracked through that. So we really try to open source every part of the community, from the blockchain to console, to the Helium app, to Explorer, to hardware, you name it, it's open source already. Even the GitHub page that says the minor frequencies, that's open source. So if there's not yet a frequency for a country, you could just submit any information that you find on documentation and submit it to the GitHub, and other community members will approve it. And it's a great way to expand knowledge about LoRaWAN through an open source nature.
And you actually have on your GitHub, you actually have a pretty decent device repository of payload decoders. I've used it and actually contributed a little bit to at least one sensor. So, but I mean, that's a great thing that that information shouldn't be closed somewhere.
Yeah, and companies like Rack Wireless, they make our Helium developer kit, but they also make so many different WizBlock kits and IoT devices, and will really help you out. So if you have an IoT device idea that you come up with, if you use the WizBlock and program it yourself, you can send it back to them, and you could get a quote from them on what it would be to manufacture it in bulk, for example, and get it ready to use and sell on an open market for anyone to use on the People's Network for your idea or your project. So it's really a great up-and-coming open source community, and we would like more developer involvement. There's definitely plenty of developers within the community, but a lot of the People's Network is focused on coverage, and we're really trying to get these use cases. So we have about 10 BD members on our team currently, just actively reaching out to new companies and focusing on use cases. But we'd really love to expand that without Helium having to be the gateway to find these new use cases. So it's been exciting to see users just come to the People's Network knowing about LoRaWAN and IoT and wanting to make new use cases as well, but also reaching out has definitely helped. So hopefully there'll be more of a shift where it's just completely open and everyone knows about the mission of LoRaWAN and IoT soon. And then, as we discussed at the beginning, Helium is with the HNT Token, which uses proof of coverage, which is a novel algorithm. It's not really proof of work like Bitcoin has, because Bitcoin, it's not really the most energy efficient. It could use more energy than many countries around the world because it's trying to prove the amount of dedicated computing power towards the blockchain. And it's not, Helium's not really proof of stake, though validators do allow staking to smooth out transaction times. But we're proof of coverage because we're a wireless network, and proving coverage and making sure that there's valuable coverage to be used for devices around the world is the goal of the network. So it's the first network of its kind that's blockchain proof of coverage. But of course, even that's open source as well. So anyone could use proof of coverage or anything, any part of Helium blockchain that they would like. And for those who aren't familiar with cryptocurrencies, blocks, epochs, the wallet, a 12-word C phrase, and the key infrastructure, it makes the network truly decentralized for anyone's usage and coverage provided. And validators and staking allow a higher number of transactions, and it's a very useful network. So something like Bitcoin that uses as much power as possible, Helium could possibly, I don't want to say compete, but Helium could also potentially confirm that many transactions as Bitcoin using much less power and being much more eco-friendly.
Yeah, and then, I mean, you mentioned power, and then I think that directly when we talk about crypto, everyone is thinking about Bitcoin, which makes sense because that's like the gold standard in cryptocurrency. But when you talk about proof of coverage and we talk about power, we said earlier that these are based on Raspberry Pis. And you all know that the Raspberry Pi, it's powered by USB-C or even micro USB if you have a 3 or 4. So 1 or 2 amps of 5 volt power, that's about 10
Yeah.
10 watts of power. It's not that much.
Yeah, it's been, I guess, crazy to think about that. The entire blockchain has been run by 16 hotspots that are elected to that consensus group.
Yeah.
But that's changing. So it'll be validators, and it'll be really stable cloud servers running the blockchain that are also hopefully power efficient, because these staking server providers are trying to optimize the power output rather
Four
than
minutes,
use as much
Tim.
power as possible. 4 minutes, it's okay if we go a little bit over.
Yeah.
So then, okay, why blockchain? So some VCs have also said that we're the Airbnb of telcos because we use blockchain. Anyone can allow housing in Airbnb. Anyone can provide wireless coverage on Helium and earn HNT for doing so. So it's really compared to Uber, Airbnb, any of those, except without really the companies behind it, because everything is open source for the infrastructure. And Helium, we do earn HST. We have HST that earns HNT, but ultimately that will be 20% of the total HNT earned down the road. So it's not really these big figures behind blockchains, and HNT can definitely revolutionize how wireless infrastructure is being built, because companies have seen that with 5G, it's actually difficult to fill in all those gaps. And if there's someone living in one of those gaps, they could just provide coverage, since it'll be a valuable spot, since there's no coverage there already. It should earn better than a very dense area for coverage. So it's really incentivized to fill in all of those gaps with HNT, and the end user will be rewarded for providing any missing coverage. So it's really been a rate unseen by traditional wireless networks. We think we've been the fastest network to expand globally within 24 months, going from 0 to 94 countries. It's really mind-blowing. The stats, if you just look at our Explorer page, explorer.helium.com, it's really great to see. There have been almost 30,000 hotspots in the past month, which is nearly half of the entire network added in the last month. It's awesome to look at.
So this is, as we started with crypto and IoT, and then also that the incentive model is, I mean, you could look at this as not an IoT thing. So this is an interesting case if you look at business models, that you're expanding your business
model
with a combination of blockchain and not doing anything. It's still a real value. So what you're doing is a real business value, providing coverage. So I think that combination it's an interesting combination. Absolutely. So that's probably why it works. So
it's caught on so far, and hopefully it'll continue to catch more attention, especially as 5G solidifies use cases for some users who may not be familiar with IoT or LoRaWAN yet. But it'll also help expand LoRaWAN usage once 5G is launched, because it'll bring anyone who's using the Helium network into the know of what LoRaWAN is and what devices they can also use besides their phones on the People's Network. And then some cool blockchain info pieces are that there's a max supply because we have 2-year halvings. So the first halving is coming up on August 1st, 2021. And this really helps encourage early growth of the network, because those earlier hotspots will be earning more HNT, with a total cap of 223 million total HNT. And then we also have that burn and mint equilibrium. So there is that cap of 223 million, but as more HNT is burned for data credit usage on a network, we expect an equilibrium where the amount of HNT minted each month is equal to the amount of HNT used for data credits. And then even with burning There's net emissions, which is the first economic model of its kind on a blockchain or anywhere in the world, to be able to distribute HNT even after minting and the max supply is reached. So there will be a pool of net emissions from previously minted HNT that can go to hotspots earning HNT down the road after max supply. And then we've talked about the consensus group for the initial blockchain scalability, but now validators are a brand new proposal and implementation that are being activated today, and it's expected to be a smooth activation. So we'll see, I guess, in a couple hours how the consensus group transitions to validators. And this will allow scalability, hopefully, into millions of hotspots. And we're just seeing the demand begin to skyrocket. It's really, the network is just beginning. And there's no, I don't really see a different way that it may be seen, especially with all the hotspots on order. But I'm definitely optimistic about the future of the network, and light gateways bringing lower costs for providing coverage, and being able to earn HNT for any type of coverage provided, whether it's 5G, 4G LTE, 3G, LoRaWAN, and maybe other IoT networks as they come about as well.
Yeah, so you're not limited to LoRaWAN as it is now. So maybe in the future there might be something else, and then you're probably going to explore that as well, or add that to the network.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely what the community wants and proposes in improvement proposals. So Freedom Fi, who we've partnered with, originally had a HIP, I believe it was a HIP 27 within our community for 5G coverage with CBRS. So it'll be just more proposals like that, and whatever the community votes on will be the next network to come about for the People's Network. And here's just a slide for the future plans. We've already discussed that there's 500,000 plus hotspots, over 1 million chips on order to go towards hotspots on the network. Validators will help with scalability. Light hotspots will decrease the hardware cost while also making it where hotspots don't need to sync to the blockchain, which can be a prohibiting factor in itself for users to provide coverage. So there won't be that prohibiting factor anymore. There will be more wireless protocols and new community discussion for these protocols, including Wi-Fi. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but it's been actively looked into before, and citywide Wi-Fi is an active discussion within the community, because connecting to Wi-Fi without having to have your own router in your home would be sweet, but you could also have your own router to provide Wi-Fi coverage to your neighbors.
Okay.
So that's exciting. And then just a fully decentralized internet run by the people, for the people, because really the tech is there where these telcos don't need to provide the infrastructure. So maybe in the more rural areas for cellular coverage, there may need to be cell towers and roaming into these other networks, but in dense areas, people can really provide their own coverage for any protocol.
Yeah, but you mentioned the word roaming, and if we stick to LoRaWAN and roaming, there are a lot of other LoRaWAN networks. We had a presentation just the other day, and they had like their own LoRaWAN gateways in a lot of buildings all over Sweden, and we have all these municipalities and cities, and also private companies that have their own LoRaWAN networks. So how does Helium fit into that?
So it's really LoRaWAN. Every country has their own frequency, so users are already providing the same frequency of coverage. It's just about these networks working together to optimize the coverage and have roaming. So there have been discussions. I know some of the other bigger networks out there for LoRaWAN are the Things Network or Actility, for example. And I believe that roaming is definitely a big up-and-coming factor for making LoRaWAN developers all come together along with those providing coverage. And I hope to see it soon. I think that roaming will be coming as one of the bigger projects within the People's Network, and I'm excited to see who really wants to work on roaming. So I believe in our BD team, but also if anyone else wants to reach out to us first, that would be much appreciated. And we've had plenty of users reach out as well. And just the gaining awareness with tens of thousands of hotspots coming on each month has really brought about these other LoRaWAN companies looking into reaching out and opening more discussions. So I'm optimistic about roaming as well.
Yeah, I got a question here about, doesn't the validators cancel out the need for 1 million chips? So from the Discord server.
1 million chips.
No, I think what it means is that I guess that what this question is about is that what the secure element of the hotspots. I guess that's what the question is. So maybe you want to explain a little bit more about what the validators do. You mentioned a little bit earlier that they are doing the consensus of the blockchain. What does that actually mean?
Yeah, so the ECC chip component will still be required for hotspots. And eventually down the road, the transition to light hotspots means that hotspots will no longer need to sync to the blockchain, so they can just focus on providing LoRaWAN coverage. And the network side of things will really focus on sending out proof of coverage beacons and participating in challenges. But for today's activation of validators, it's really just smoothing out block time. So the target goal for blocks is 60 seconds, but last month we've had a trailing time of about 73 seconds. So with the consensus group of Raspberry Pis, it's been slower block times, and this will just help smooth things out and make sure that rewards get out to the target 5 million HNT minted per month until the halving, once that's decreased to 2.5 million HNT. But for now, it'll be the same hardware components, and down the road, it'll just be that hotspots won't need to sync to the blockchain or have those components, but they'll still need to have the secure element within them.
Yeah. So, and I think that also might be worth mentioning. I think this is one of the coolest things is that you're running a blockchain on as it is now, almost 80,000 Raspberry Pis that are syncing the blockchain. All of them are more or less in sync. I've seen the statistics. It can differ like a couple of hundred blocks, more or less.
It also means that a couple hotspots can cause downtimes for the blockchain. So as more hotspot brands have come online, we've seen that having a variation of hotspots within the consensus group has also posed problems. So having stable cloud servers will be a big plus, but it's definitely been the most unique blockchain that I've ever seen, powered by Raspberry Pis. And it's awesome that we've got this far to 80,000 hotspots still powered by Raspberry Pis.
Yeah, and they are using also the Rock Wireless, and I'm not sure about the OG, but at least the Rock Wireless, they're using an SD card. So just the fact that all these SD cards are wearing out.
Validators will also help improve on that. Because if you don't need to sync to the blockchain, you won't need to rewrite on the SD cards as much.
So that's very cool.
Focused on forwarding the data back to the internet, which is the main component of a network anyway. So hotspots can focus on their main capability of network coverage. So that's what I had for you guys today. If you'd like to join the movement, visit helium.com. If you have any questions after this, just reach out to me at timothy@helium.com. I'm happy to help you get involved. But if you'd like to get involved on your own, our Discord channel is it's the biggest place to do this, with 80,000 members coming up today or tomorrow, most likely, hand in hand with those hotspot numbers, as well as our Twitter. We send out lots of educational content if you'd like to stay in the loop or get involved with development on GitHub. They're all Helium for the handles. And then I'm happy to stick around for questions if there's additional questions as well. And I appreciate you taking the time to have me on today.
Yeah, and well, I'm super happy. So until we'll see if there are dropping in some questions. I know that someone asked, are you able to share the presentation? I guess that's fine, like the PDF. So maybe you can just drop it in the Discord channel, and I don't even have to do it. But so you see that there's a lot of well, people saying thank you and amazing and all that. But so in very, very short, I think that, I mean, your story was, this is just a reflection. Your story was, well, from crypto into Helium, and then you're here at an IoT course. And what we are doing now is that we're introducing crypto for people that might never have been interested in crypto, like coming from the IoT. So like sort of closing the circle in some sort. I think this is interesting, and maybe it's a good thing that you combine like people from the crypto and people from the IoT and developers, because new ideas come from mixing different things.
Yeah, even if an Airbnb or an Uber were to take place on a blockchain, that could even be a very scalable solution as well. It's just really these peer-to-peer networks, there's already so many developers behind the blockchain side of things, and really trying to make anything more efficient. Cryptocurrency really isn't just focused on the DeFi space with decentralized finance and Bitcoin and Litecoin and Stellar Lumens and all those platforms, but there's also smart contracts and so many areas of development to bring new technologies to people around the world. And I really like Helium. There's also like file storage technologies that have been open sourced and cloud computing, but I think that 5G as well as LoRaWAN, 3G, and different protocols will be an all-in-one solution to provide fundamental infrastructure to anyone who needs it around the world at lower costs than the current costs. So it's a really beneficial solution, and it's been awesome that there's been so many active community members behind it, and the contributions are really paving the way for the future of the network.
And my personal view is that you need to, if you're diving into the Discord server of Helium, which I think, well, please do, but just be like, have your mind set in the right place, because if you go into the wrong channels, then people are angry, they're shouting, and then people are so disappointed and not getting their orders. And as you said, there's a long backlog of orders. So I mean, look at the development side, look at the application side of the network and see the possibilities rather than
There's so
diving
many
to
applications channels there for
because
any part you want to get involved in.
Yeah, I guess that, I mean, because people are like coming in from the crypto,
from both sides.
Yeah, so then they might just want to earn as much crypto as possible, and many people, I've seen,
it helps optimize coverage too. So it's understandable, and it's good to have more education out there to help anyone earn more crypto while optimizing the coverage. So it's a good thing that it's not just about earning more crypto, but it's about providing utility with it.
Yeah, and it's an interesting that you can actually get an incentive model that obviously seemed to work very well for like providing. I mean, now we can make things that hasn't been possible before, so that's really great. So I guess there seems not to be any more questions. We might have covered all, and you're also still in the Discord server, at least for now, and you might be able to answer some questions that are coming in after the presentation. I know that you are busy, so
I'll post the slides, and it is a busy day here, but I'll check in later in the day and I can get back on any questions as well.
That's great. So thank you very much, Tim. It has been so great. Stay just a couple of more minutes after I press the end stream, and we can have some after chat. But then, so thank you everyone for listening, and I'm so grateful that Tim joined in from Helium today. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for having me.